Okay, this is Randy's Sprinklers again. And we're going to try something a little bit different today. I'm always trying to do something different. So I've seen a lot of people that have done other videos and they talk about the parts in one way or another, and I'm not so sure that they really understand what those parts are. So what I want to do is take, just using this as an example, a sprinkler that we can refer to and say, here's what the parts are. Now I've got a number of different sprinklers sitting here. I haven't seen this one because I haven't showed it to you. This is the very large, it's a female style rather than a male style. But of course this is a full circle. There's no mechanism for doing a part circle. Most of these sprinklers that I have here, with the exception of a couple that we'll get to, that are part circle. This one is a full circle, very large by comparison to a rainbird, small rainbird that is used for much smaller environments. This is obviously very agricultural. So as long as I've got this in my hand, let's go through the parts. We'll start at the top. So this is what we call the center pin. And then the housing, the basic housing, is the body. You got the arm. And in this case, this is what we call a spoon arm, because this is like a spoon. When you see an arm that's like this, which we'll get to, this is what we call an anti-backsplash arm. And Rainbird came up with a definition for it called PJ, which is what they call precision jet. So arm, the spring for the arm so that it will rotate. The water pushes the arm back, and the spring brings it back to the front. And of course, when it hits the body, that's what makes it move. So then we have a nozzle, and you can see this is a pretty big nozzle by comparison to a lot of the other ones. This one also has a nozzle on the back side, which this is what they call a spreader nozzle because it has a little slot in there. And so it gives a good spray so to catch the spaces in between from the longer distance. And this is in a shorter distance. Some of these larger sprinklers do it differently, where this is a spreader nozzle, and then the range nozzle has the large stroke. So it can be done differently on different sprinklers. So there, here we have the body. And then down here, this part that turns, the sprinkler turns on this. This is what we call a bearing sleeve. And this is more a bearing on this one here than a sleeve. But, and I know you can see on the inside here, this area that I've put my finger on is the journal tube. And of course, on a sprinkler like this, a little harder to get out if I wanted to take it out. Now this was attached to a piece of pipe that was used for the company that used the sprinkler in the past. And I had to use a pipe wrench to get these two apart. I probably should have brought it out, but anyway. So you get the journal tube in there, and of course there are washers between the journal tube and where the sleeve actually fits onto the journal tube here. So I've not had one of these apart, and this has no play in it, and this actually turns very stiffly. very stiff movement. So like when this arm hits this, it keeps on rotating because it keeps the position and keeps on moving. So there's a lot to that. So I'm going to set that one down, out of the way. And I did bring this up as an example. But I'm going to go through some of these others before we come back to this, because there's a reason why I'm saving this one for later. We'll come back to that. You've seen this on my sprinkler system. This was a Gilmore, and again, this would be the center pin, but in this case, this center pin is not designed to be removed. It's glued in. Again, the body, the arm, and in this case, the anti-backsplash arm, which is what they call, or is known as the PJ arm that Rainbird gave it. Oh, the other thing about this one, it has no diffuser or deflector, designed for long range. Here we have a diffuser, and so what you see is a point in there. Adjust how much you want to adjust or break up the stream. Now this had a top on it, which would be the deflector, but in this case I took it off when I needed to drill out this hole. And if you look carefully, you can see that it is drilled out. That is the nozzle where the water comes out. And so I drilled this out with a 5/32 drill bit. Maybe larger than I should have, but so I did. And again, the body. Now this is a part circle, so you see some additional things on here. So back here we have the trip mechanism, and this is the trip lever, which has a spring inside to get that to flip up and down, as you can see. Now, this is a part circle sprinkler, but when I take this particular piece and flip this up, which is the trip lever, that makes it full circle. So now it actually turns in, Okay, so I ran out of battery on the other one. So, so let me continue where I was left off with this. And so you can see on the back side is the trip lever. And I mentioned about the trip. This is the trip lever, this is the trip mechanism. These are stops. The collar actually is on the sleeve. So you see the sleeve. This is also what they call a bearing on the brass models like this. That's a bearing. So we got the sleeve. The collar is what these stops are attached to. And the threads, in this case, these are male threads. And if you want, you can bring that up and move that around to the other side. So this works both ways. Now, on this particular sprinkler, it's not too critical, but what I try to show is on some of the sprinklers, it makes a difference as to what stop is on the return side. So when it goes back, so let's say it's on its way back, and to make that return to go back forward again, the stop to do that usually needs to be one on the bottom. So when the trip mechanism is in the back, it's a little confusing. And this is on the one like this, it's not a problem. But then you get, let's see, well, even on a brass model like this, which one is the return mechanism makes a difference. So it can make a difference, and depending on which one is which. So as long as I got this up here, your center pin, your body, your spring, your arm. This one's a spoon arm, as you can see. You have your deflector, the diffuser. So on a lot of these, you have both the deflector and the diffuser. Years ago, in the early ones, which I don't have sitting here, the brass models had the diffuser, and the plastic models had the deflector. And eventually, the plastic models came out with the diffuser as well. So then you had both. Of course, the deflector wasn't too good on the early models either. So it's made a lot of improvements over the years, and I'm going to show you that as well. So then we come down to, well, of course, you have the nozzle, which is here. These actually screw out, which is very nice and handy. Just as on this big one, the nozzle screws out. The reverse mechanism on the back, in this case, is much different than what we saw here. So this one seems very simple by comparison, but this particular mechanism design has been a very long running standard. And in this case, this has a little spring right there in the very center and sometimes they're on the top side as opposed to the bottom side. It's just the way this one is done. So this lever trips and then forces the top lever, which affects this going forward or backwards. So then we have your bearing sleeve. This actually is a bearing as well as the sleeve, which houses the stops, and they sit on the collar portion of the bearing sleeve. There is this O-ring I think I put on there thinking that it would help with the potential leaking, but in this case it didn't make any difference. Then you have this spring in there which helps stabilizes the rotation. So one of the things that is that was a problem in the early days on a lot of sprinklers with the spoon arm, and this is not one of them. They didn't have a spring here, no spring. And so consequently, it was on the loose side. And what happens is, with the spoon arm design, you would get the body wobble. And so it would hit going forward, but as the arm came back, then it would make this body wobble back and forth. Not is so evident on the brass models, but more evident on the older plastic models. Don't think I see it. I don't have any plastic models that are built today with a spoon arm They almost all have a PJ arm, or what we call an anti-backsplash arm. So let me go back to the base here with the bearing sleeve. The collar is the area where these trip levers, these stops, these are actual stops, that sit on that collar area. And then of course, below that is, on a lot of these is a black, then a black rubber washer, a nylon washer, and then another rubber washer. On this one only has the nylon and the black washer. And I think in a lot of cases, you probably can get away with just the nylon and the rubber washer, but it varies from sprinkler to sprinkler. And then of course the last thing is the journal tube. So I guess I haven't removed this one in a while. But anyway, this is the journal tube. And I know it's an unusual name. That's the name the companies gave it in the early days. And I've been using that identification ever since. So since we're on the metal sprinkler, this is a much cheaper version of what we're looking at here. This one is very heavy duty, commercial grade. This one is very much a home grade, and they might try to tell you this is commercial, but it's not. But again, and this one here is this one's an Orbit brand. This one was a Champ brand. And again, I'll go through the parts. Your center pin, your body, your spring, and something else that you will see more on the newer models is, so don't know if you can see it, but on this one, you can actually see that the spring is threaded through holes. And on the newer models, they have what they call, or what they show is these hooks that you just move the spring on around, so you don't have to like thread the spring. So kind of a neat idea. So that's what they've done with this. This has got these little hooks on the inside and also on the arm. So, but here you got the arm with the anti-backsplash, and there are two types of these, and I didn't bring out the other type, did I? No, I didn't. The older model had a tube here, and so the tube, nope, that was not a tube. The tube here was actually a tube that was an add-on that Rainbird came up with back in the day. It was back in the either late 60s or early 70s. But they started out doing this on the Model 25 sprinkler, which was about this size. So the anti-backsplash is designed so that this comes straight out. This has a little bit of a lip on it on the inside here, which you may or may not see right there. And so it forces the water off to the side rather than straight out, like as the anti-backsplash arm is designed. So again, you've got your diffuser pin, deflector, and on some of these, they're not very strong. This one's okay. The strip lever is a little bit different, but similar to the the Champ. This is an older style trip lever. This is more of the newer style, a little bit lighter. Doesn't mean it's any better or any more effective. Again, this trip lever is designed so you can bend it up and make it go full circle. These stops are a little bit different. They're effective, they work well, but I don't like them. Makes it very hard to judge where to put them. But you squeeze them together and then you rotate, depending on where you want them. As far as basic working, they work well. You know, because they don't slip or move like some of these others that I'll show you. But those stops, they're just bulky, that's all. These are very bulky. And to me, I don't think it's a very good design, but there it is. And then you've got your sleeve, bearing sleeve. And in this case, there's no spring here. And on this one has a black washer, the white nylon washer, and then another black washer. And of course, this runs up against all of that. And works pretty well. Now this has a O-ring here, and I don't know whether that was already there or whether I put it there. But for some reason, I think it's a good idea because then it just seals the sleeve to the stand that you put it on, so you don't get the leaks. And again, then you got the journal tube. And I don't think I've taken this one apart. This is a new sprinkler that, or I think it was a new sprinkler that I have not fiddled with yet. But this one is an Orbit. And I think the spring's a little bit tight, but there it is, it's there. So as long as we're on brass sprinklers, we'll pull these other two out. Now I already did a video on this one, which is a Rainbird 14V. This has a little bit different mechanism on it. So again, this is a full circle. So this goes all the way around. This is a Rainbird. Your center pin, your body, your spring. Now there's a difference in spring designs as well, and I'll share that in a minute. Your nozzle here, your nozzle, and then you arm with a different mechanism on here. This is not a spoon, and it's not a PJ. This is what they call a wedge, and this evidently was a design that came out like really early on, and I don't know, they use this in like orange groves, grapefruit groves, maybe even apple groves, where they don't want the fruit to freeze. And I don't know what this does that's different, but these sprinklers move very quickly. And when you go to look at the video that I have on this one, you will see that. Of course, I mentioned the body. Down here you have a spring. It's pretty stiff. I mean, that's very hard to move up and down. But the bearing, sleeve, the threads, and this one has, like I mentioned, a black washer, nylon washer, or I think that's a nylon washer, another black washer, and then your journal tube. And it even says on here that this is made in Mexico. So Rainbird is making these in Mexico now. And that's an excellent sprinkler. So this is an older model of a similar sprinkler, but this is a WeatherTech. And you can see that on the arm here. Your center pin, your body. And this has a large spoon. And I think this is designed so that depending on the nozzle and where the nozzle is positioned, whether it's positioned to be on the high side or on the low side, in this case, someone has it down near the bottom. So it's a very unusual design because we're used to seeing the nozzle and the hole in the center. And this one's not. As you see, it's down there on the bottom side. It's a maybe decent size. But the spoon being wide like this, kind of one of the neat things about the wide spoon is that it will carry more water. And so the action is a little bit greater. Sometimes these move a little bit quicker. And again, you get down to the bearing sleeve and the journal tube. And WeatherTech was really intent on sealing this up. So this is all sealed up in here. Now that doesn't mean this is not removable. Probably it's removable, but they didn't want you to remove it. And you see there's no notch on the bottom. See, this has a notch where you can take the screwdriver and remove it. This does not. And they very intentionally sealed it up. And the idea was that nothing is supposed to get in here but water through this tube, and then this is supposed to be able to turn. So I would say it's a pretty good design and well done. And again, it's a full circle. So I mentioned I was going to talk about the springs here, and so this is just as good an example as any. So this is a spring that is tightly woven together. And you look at this spring, and this one's separated. Now, to be honest, as far as springs go, I like the ones that are separated like this better than the ones that are like this. This seems to operate better, just from my observation. So you'll see that here as well. But as long as I got this in my hand, I'm going to go through this one. Center pin. This diffuser is different. So most of the diffusers have a design like this where you adjust it through this top, and a lot of times you have to push this down to get it where you want it. So this is the top to the diffuser. It's the actual adjustment. And this one, this is a takeoff on a design that was used back in the day on the rain time sprinkler, and it's a knob that you just turn nicely, and you see it slides in or out very smoothly. Much better design than these others. So this one has also a diffuser versus the deflector. Did I call this diffuser? This one meant deflector. This is the deflector. diffuser. And of course, in this case, this is what would be considered once the plane goes over. This is an anti-backsplash arm. A little bit like the brass ones I was showing you. This has a little bit of a lip and a curve that curves off to the right instead of going straight out. And I will tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. And of course, we come down to the nozzle. In this case, we have two nozzles. This is your main nozzle, and this is a spreader nozzle for in-between area. So the sprinkler works off of the blue nozzle here. What does it say? I don't know if that says 3.3 or 3.5 millimeter, but it is small. This is pretty much a standard nozzle, but because of the way they design these are usually pretty fast sprinklers, but maybe too fast. Now the one thing that's kind of neat about this one, it's similar in design to this one. And they are in a lot of ways identical when you look at the tops of them, the sides of them. The arm is different, and that has a lot to do with how it operates. But the neck in here is shorter on this than on here. This one has a larger neck, longer neck. So to accommodate the extra nozzle. So let's go now to the, and of course you see the modification. I put the screw in here to add some extra weight and to slow this arm down. Personally, I like hearing a little bit slower arm with a fast return. A slow arm on the forward and a faster return. Adding this weight gives me a little bit of that kind of sensation. And thinking that this being a new sprinkler, you would think that it would have the hooks rather than the holes. This one has the holes in it, both on the arm and in the body itself. So the nice thing is this slows the arm down, adds a little bit extra weight, and gives me that, you can get a rhythm to hearing that, hearing the arm move. Of course, now here you got the reverse mechanism, the trip lever. This is the trip lever. And the stops on this are really more stable than a lot of these other stops, and I'll show you in a minute. See how much thicker these are when you compare that to, well, even ones like this. These are thin by comparison to this. This one is not too bad because these aren't as flimsy, but on maybe this one. Gotta separate them first. Yeah, so these are a little bit more flimsy. These aren't bad because they still do the job. But the thing I like about these is the fact that they are wider and much more stable. This has the trip mechanism on the front. So we want to adjust the trip mechanism. So that's where it stops. I work with this particular lever, this particular stop. Now go forward this particular stop. Now, you just heard the click. And so when I'm setting it, before I turn the water on, I move these stops to where I want it to go, and I stop when I hear the click, and then I can look and go, oh, it's in the right place, or no, it's not. I need to move that again, and then we'll go forward again. Oh, it's in the right spot, and you go back. Okay, now it's in the right spot. But you can tell where it's going to land based on that click. Anyway, so it's a little easier when the mechanism is in the front to adjust the stops, but that is relatively minor, at least for me, because this is just as effective, and it's just a matter of learning to adjust it. It's a reasonably cheap sprinkler, but very effective. And I can tell you that if you were using one of these, it would last a pretty long time. There's no reason why the airplane getting to us again here, but there's no reason why this would be any harder to set than one in the front. It's just a matter of getting used to it. So then you've got, they also got smart and put a cover. So part of the body structure is a cover. And so there's a spring in there. Doesn't move very much, but there is a spring in there. And that adds a lot of pressure to the sleeve here. And of course on the bottom, again, black washer, nylon washer, and is there another washer there? In this case, it's just a black washer and nylon washer. So the nylon washer is on the bottom, running against the journal tube. And from my experiments, I'm finding out that's probably the best place to put the nylon washer, is on the bottom. Anyway, so when you go to use one of these, they're not complicated. You need to adjust the distance. You can either do that with the deflector or the diffuser. When you need to adjust the circle radius, that's what these stops are for. And they're relatively easy to move, and that's about it. So that takes care of that one. So I've got all these others sitting on here. I already showed you this one. And this one, like the one with the yellow arm, also has what I call a tight spring. Now I have another model of these that has the much looser spring, which I prefer. This is a Gilmore version. Excuse me. This one has no spring in here, and evidently it doesn't need one. This one has a very tight arm, and it has a spring above the sleeve. So it depends on the sprinkler. But from what I'm finding is, if the arm is on the lighter side, as far as ease of movement, I think you'll find that it will be a nicer working sprinkler and will work at lower pressures as well. This is a Melnor, although it doesn't say. This is a Melnor that are available in Home Depot. Not very expensive. Two come together on a metal spike. But my complaint is this arm is too tight. And yes, I can adjust it. I can undo the connection here and run it on around and readjust the spring so that I get the tension that I want. I know it's hard to see, but the nozzle is kind of a small nozzle. But most of these newer designs are, I'm not sure what size that is. Might be 1/8. But they're not very big. This one would be the same. Now this is a good example of taking and readjusting the arm and the pressure. So this arm has been lightened up already. And what I did is I took and this one has hooks instead of the holes for the threading. So instead of having this go all the way around to keep it tight, I loosen it up and then the pin cannot be removed. So this is much lighter, and I haven't retested this since I made some other adjustments as well. And you get some of these that you cannot remove the journal tube. And this has a black washer, white nylon washer, and another black washer. So as far as that goes, that part's fine. But again, you see no spring here, and evidently it doesn't seem to need one. And the other thing I like about this spring is, although it doesn't have enough coils on it, but that they're separated instead of bunched up together like some of these others. And this one is an old classic. I'm sure you'd recognize the top, the deflector. This is a little bit newer model because this would normally be a metal pin for the diffuser, and this one's plastic. We recognize the Beta 2 arm, and although this spring is very effective for this particular sprinkler, I prefer a spring that's separated like this. So this is loose enough. So this can be, this particular sleeve is not the one that comes with this sprinkler. This is a little bit odd design, and I'm not going to go into the details of this, but it does have the black washer, the nylon fitted washer inside this sleeve, and then these stops were what happened to be on this particular sleeve. The stops that come with the normal sleeve are yellow like this one. And this is not the normal trip lever that we see for this particular sprinkler, because the one that they normally have looks like this. And this one has this curved mechanism, which not sure why they did that, but I just got this, so I haven't really tested this out. These are not fast sprinklers, they never have been, and then I don't expect it to be, because this is a unique PJ arm, not like these others. Kind of interesting how they designed this, and the way that works, but it does work, and it sends the water straight out like it's supposed to. So now you understand the parts of these sprinklers and how to adjust them. So again, this is your adjustment for the deflector, the diffuser adjustment if you want to break up the stream, your stops to adjust your rotation distance. So if you want a 90-degree, then you move the stop so that when it turns, it only does 90 degrees. If you wanted 180 degrees, you move the stops appropriately, or anywhere in between, but now you're doing 180 degrees. And with that, I'm going to call it a video, and I thought you guys might like to see this particular one different, and whether I'll ever get a chance to test it, we'll see. But please press the subscribe button, and hopefully you'll press the like button, and I'll merge these two videos together, and stay tuned for more. Talk to you next time.